Hi,
Hello.
everyone. So, shall we get this party started?
So I guess we're live now, and we're going to deep dive into the questions.
Yep. So let's just, briefly, very briefly introduce ourselves because you probably have bumped into us around the internet somewhere. So I'm Andra Zaharia, content marketer with cybersecurity expertise. I work with startups on their content marketing strategies, positioning, and a bunch of other things. And super excited to do this today with you, Irina.
Super excited to be here again, sharing the virtual stage with you. So I'm Irina. I'm a product marketer. I've been working with startups and high growth companies, from having my own agency to leading Uber's marketing team in Romania, and then to being part of Revolut's team for 3 years, starting as a country manager and wrapping up as global head of growth. And now I'm happily unemployed.
So there's a backstory there, but people who want to do that can just dive into your blog because there's a lot to learn from there. So yeah, I think we're ready for the questions. Cool. So we're talking about the most crucial action that a startup should take when it comes to digital marketing. Do you mind if I start?
Please do.
So my number one thing would be when you start off, there's so much you want to achieve, and you might want to make sure that everything that you do is perfect and that it's super polished. But try to resist that tendency. The best thing you can do in the early stages of a startup is to actually ship things, just to put things out there, test them, and iterate. So if you're talking about, the most important thing that you can do is to think in experiments, and to design these experiments not to have accurate precision because you won't be able to do that in the beginning, but to implement this discipline of shipping and to maintain that consistency and putting stuff out there so you can get feedback and that iterate and improve. So my number one thing would be to be very bias towards action and towards building things, and to have a minimal process that you can then improve to capture that feedback and then introduce it back into the system so you can improve further.
Fully aligned with Andra on the topic. If I can say something to add up here to what Andra says, and so I think that the first thing startups should do when it comes to digital marketing is not rush into digital marketing. It depends a lot on how you actually define digital marketing. But if you put an equal sign between digital marketing and performance marketing, just don't do it in the very early stages. Just ship things, as Andra said, put them out there. The first and most important thing is to make sure that you have product market fit and the product is right for your customers. And then later on, when it comes to marketing, it's very important to know your users and to make sure that you speak in the language of your users, that the messaging, all the campaigns that you are doing cater to your users and not to the marketer that's doing them. So, when is it necessary to start thinking about positioning in the startup? I'll go first here. So, I think before starting a startup, there's never too early to talk about positioning, and that's key because you need to know who are you targeting to your product to. You need to know who your customers are. So you need to think about positioning even before, I mean, even when you have just an idea and not a product, you need to think about positioning.
Just to add a little bit to that, I completely agree with you, Irina, and I think that this is one of the most important things to cultivate as you go along. You may not fully understand the process at the beginning. You may not be, an expert on positioning, but differentiation is one of the most important and the most valuable things for the business to focus on as you go along. And that draws on your understanding of the customer's mindset, needs, and context. So it's ever evolving. You'll probably, never stop work around positioning. And you shouldn't stop work around positioning because it's something that lives and breathes and evolves with your company. So to me, this is one of the key factors that's worth investing in. And conversations around positioning always inspire change and improvement throughout the business, not just, marketing wise, but it just spreads through the entire business.
So, what are the most efficient marketing channels for a B2B startup? So, there's no such thing as the most efficient marketing channels for a B2B startup because it definitely depends. What I advise everyone, and that's a bit of an unsolicited advice, but still, what I advise everyone is know the product, know what you're working on, know your market, because there's no such thing as the most efficient marketing channels for any type of startup. So if we're talking B2B startups, I might be tempted to talk about inbound marketing and to talk about content as a very effective early stage channel, but there's not a one size fits all solution, and there's no answer that's going to cater all the circumstances and all the instances and all the B2B startups out there. So experimentation. Andra was talking in the beginning about shipping things, putting them out up there, about experimentation being like a religion in your company. When it comes to marketing channels and what works and what not, experimentation is key as well. The dumbest thing I've ever heard from a startup guy was when they told that experimentation is for losers. No, even when talking about marketing, experimentation is key, and it's the thing that will help you discover what works for you particularly. Because it doesn't actually matter what works in general; it matters what works for you.
So true. And just to build a little bit on that, um, obviously, again, like Irina said, there are no recipes, there's no perfect roadmap, there are no hacks. You just have to do the work and figure out what the channels are. And the easiest way to find that out is to actually, ask your customers or ask the people who want to be who you want to be, customers. Just ask them when they hang out. Ask them, what people they follow, who they trust, where they spend most of their time online, because that is going to point you towards the right direction. And also, maybe not try to tackle everything at once because you're not going to be able to do that. Try to experiment with a batch of channels, a limited batch of channels, and give them a chance to, build up and have that compound effect over a decent period of time, because you might be tempted to do everything at once, and there's a lot of enthusiasm to do that, but obviously you only have so many resources, so there's got to be some limitations that you bump into. So just, first of all, talk to people, get a lot of qualitative feedback, and then use that feedback to focus your direction and your efforts.
So, going next, how do you create a community for virtual co-working? How do you create virality for this virtual co-working? What is the best platform to grow your community? Um, so you start with your users. When it comes to creating a community, any type of community, irrespective of what type of community you want to build, the most important thing is to actually talk to your users, see where your users are, and connect with your users. Communities are based on human connection. So if you want to build a strong community around anything, not only about virtual community, you need to actually facilitate the human connection and the direct interaction between yourself and your users first, and between your users themselves second. And then if we can have the question again on the screen, because there were actually three questions, so So how do you create virality for this virtual co-working? So I hate the concept of virality. There's no such thing as creating virality. There's no such thing as doing viral marketing. Things go viral if you're actually doing something that's really cool. Things go viral if you're actually doing something that completely and deeply resonates with your users, and you cannot predict whether something is going to get viral or not. On the other hand side, it's not about virality, but it's more about creating network effects. So how do you create network effects? Here is a bit simpler. From my point of view, virality is a buzzword. It's the kind of vanity indicator that we're looking at, versus network effects, which is something that can be actually measured and achieved. And in order to achieve the network effects, in order to grow at scale, you need to do something that your users really want, that your users actually care about, and that your users love that much that they are willing to further refer your product to others. So this is how you create network effects. And the third question, if I can have the question on the screen again, please. So what's the best platform to grow your community? There's no such thing as a best platform to grow your community. It depends on who is your community. Where are your users? If your users are on Facebook, Facebook might be the best platform. If your users are on Reddit, Reddit might be the best platform. So there's no such thing as the ideal platform to grow your community. It's go where your users are.
I love this set of questions because community is one of the things that I, love the most in my work. To be able to build a community, you have to be deeply, intensely passionate about a topic that drives that community, whatever that topic is. And sometimes I feel that, because we're all biased and because we all kind of live in our heads, we have a tendency to think that what's important to us is important to other people as well, simply because for us it's such a big, issue or such a large point of interest. So what I suggest is that first of all, be a member of the community, and try to step outside yourself a little bit. Try to see yourself as a member of other communities and see kind of how you engage with those communities, how much time you dedicate to them, what kind of effort you put in, and what pulls you there, what keeps you going, what are the habits and the rewards, the experiences, the emotions that you have every time you interact with those communities, whether it's your book club or some sort of group, for a particular topic. It's interesting to analyze your own behaviors because by analyzing them, you'll be able to see them in others and hopefully to inspire that as well. And I think that one of the things that will help you truly, cultivate, walk the talk on community building is to learn how to ask questions. Not just ask more questions, which is stage one, but also go to stage two, which is what I call it, and that involves asking better questions to understand why people do things, why they're so deeply connected to a topic that they're willing to spend some of their life energy and money on that particular topic. So trying to look at it, let's say from a psychological point of view, and trying to find those patterns will help you understand what it takes to build a community. But it starts with you. It starts with you talking about the things that are important to you. And it starts with prioritizing the needs of the communities, just like you should prioritize the needs of your customers. Because the moment that your customers or your community, figure out that all you're trying to do is sell them something, they're probably going to instantly or almost instantly reject that message or reject that conversation. So I think that this is valuable to keep in mind because a community is based on a shared interest, and figuring out what that shared interest is and how you can serve it are two very important elements that require a thoughtful approach and quite a bit of your time and energy, but it's super rewarding. And then you can build all that knowledge back into your product.
Uh, so how do you market your product to two different audiences with two different selling points? So that's a very very good question. Hopefully, the two different selling points are complementary and not completely different or contradictory. Because in that case, it's very hard not to look bipolar when actually marketing it. So this is where you need to actually choose your marketing channels very wisely. So you have two categories of audience, and you have two USPs, one for each of them. You're choosing the channel. So given that the audiences are different, they are going to read, write. They are going to be completely two different personas with different sets of interests, and you're going to choose the channels depending on those interests. And you need to do the targeting properly in order to make sure that the right message gets to the right audience.
I've seen this happen a lot in my work, especially if you're trying to cater to both B2B and B2C audiences, which often have very different consumption patterns, very different decision making behaviors, and so on and so forth. And what I found is that you're always going to have to prioritize one over the other. And obviously, knowing which customer persona or customer category to prioritize is going to, take a little bit of time so you can figure out, what your revenue streams are and which of these two categories generates it. But I think that the most important thing, just like Irina said, is to make sure there's a congruence, there's an overlap there, see what that overlap is, and try to figure out why they're so different, and maybe which which of these categories is your best customer. Because you're never going to be able to be everything for everyone. This is impossible, and it's not a winning strategy. And going back to the question about positioning, you're going to obviously want to, put your effort and resources behind a clearly, let's say, established goal. And it's difficult to please two divergent customer personas at the same time. So this may be a stage in the development of your startup, of your business, that may change. So leave room for that change to happen and for that growth to happen, and see if, as you go along, you discover that one of these two types of customers is actually your best customers that you should focus solely and exclusively on. Or who knows, it can, a third type of customer may come along that proves to be your best one. So I think that this is a stage that sometimes, requires that experimentation that we talked about. It's a development stage. It can be also a stage that indicates, or a challenge that indicates, that you've not found product market fit yet. So this is just something to tackle with this experimentation mindset, and to tackle with an open mind and leaving room for possibility of growth and of change as you go along. So, how can the business develop multiple channels of customer acquisition and avoid channel conflict? Um, this is something that obviously takes time to develop, especially, when you're focused on either, B2B or B2C. There are so many choices that you have out there. But I know that I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it all starts with understanding your customer and understanding, where they hang out, where they spend most of their money, where they get most of their information. It's just a matter of observing their behavior and trying those channels, seeing what works, trying to scale what works. After you've tested them, you've, let's say, launched a mini campaign, or you've spent 1, 2, 3 months on a particular channel, giving it your best effort, seeing if there's a match there between what you need and how that particular channel works. And also, to avoid channel conflict, you're also always going to, want to choose something to focus on. So, for example, you have, for example, so many reviews platforms to choose from, to build social proof, to use even as a lead generation channel, and so on and so forth. you're not going to be able to have the most best reviews on all of these platforms. It's not realistic, and you're gonna, spread yourself thin and not going to be able to actually drive reviews and interaction and to truly build a channel into what you need it to be. So maybe, do a comparison between your competitors, see where most of your customers hang out, and see what sits at the intersection of that. Start small, then iterate. As you build these channels, you are going to also build an internal process to tackle these channels. And building internal processes is one of the most useful things that you can do for your company, that you can do for your team. They're repeatable. You can, replicate them and you can improve them. So as you, tackle these challenges in these channels, look a little bit inside and look at your process and see what goes on there.
Um, fully aligned with Andra yet again. So if we look into acquisition channels, we have four macro acquisition channels. So we're looking into organic, we're looking into referrals, we're looking into performance marketing, and we're looking into affiliates slash partnerships. Of course, that you can further break down each of these channels, and you can also look at I don't know, website. You can treat the website as a different channel or not. CRM, you can treat it separately or not. But these are like the four macro acquisition channels. And as you scale these channels and you experiment along these channels, there's always going to be some cannibalization, and you're always going to have the attribution issue. Where did this user actually come from? If I stop performance marketing, is this user going to bounce back into organic and hence be a cheaper user for me and more effective for me to bring it on board? You need to in order to make sure that you're not cannibalizing your users and you're not paying more than you should in order to acquire your users. What you need to do is to experiment in order to understand what's the uplift, what's the incrementality, analyze everything in terms of incrementality, and this way you're going to keep cannibalization in check as you scale acquisition channels.
Going to the next question. How can I measure success in product marketing, and what are the KPIs that I need to follow? Now the floor is yours entirely here.
So I suggest you have a North Star metric here. So beware of vanity indicators. If you've ever in your life looked at app downloads as a KPI, just don't cross it from the list and ignore it. Forget that it was always there. So look at what matters for you as a company. In the very early stages, what matters for most company is actually delivering growth, choosing that they showing that they can grow, and then the product marketing objective is to build effective go-to-market strategies for the product, scaling this go-to-market strategy in order to deliver signups. As the company grows, you come to realize that signups are just a vanity metric, because it doesn't matter if you have 1 million users if those users are not actually looking at the product. So you're going further down the funnel and you're looking into activated users instead. So you're looking into conversion. You're looking into users that not only sign up but actually engage and use your product. Then again, as you further grow, you're going to look into weekly active. So what I recommend is that from the beginning, look at weekly active users, because funnel health is super important in product marketing. And if you look at weekly active users, you're going to that's a very good measure of the health of your funnel. Having an increasing number of weekly active users means that you're not only acquiring the right users for your business, but you're not losing them once you acquire them. And I mean, it depends at where you are as a company. As a product marketer myself, I always look all along the funnel in order to understand when things aren't working as planned, in order to see the major frictions along the funnel, and in order to solve run different experiments in order to sort them out.
We managed to squeeze a lot of value here, and I just wanted to quickly add something to what Irina says, or more like to add just a tiny detail here, which is to always look at the repeatable behaviors that you can support throughout your entire, let's say, product marketing approach. You want to figure out how to keep users engaged in a way that serves their purposes, and to be able to do that, you might want to look at the jobs to be done framework, which is super, super helpful to understand the user's context and their motivations that might not be as obvious. And obviously, whatever you pull from customer conversations, which you're probably going to hear a lot of, but you should be having these all the time. They're incredibly important. They're a great education for you as a business leader, as a founder, as a specialist, no matter what your role is. So pulling that information from customer conversations and then building it into your funnel, throughout your entire website, throughout your customer journey and so on, will elevate, all of your KPIs, and you'll make sure that you're choosing the right ones for your customer and their use cases. And that's also the kind of process that happens, all the time. It just works in the background because you work at it, obviously, not because it works by itself. But knowing exactly, which elements to look at will make it easier to choose that North Star metric, which is a great framework that brings a lot of clarity and that helps you distinguish between product KPIs and business KPIs. So you'll know exactly, how to match them and how to make them work, and aligned the team align internally on those metrics, and make sure that you're executing in the right direction, because you only have so many resources to put in, so you're going to want to make sure that you make the most of them. Cool. So, what are the top 5 skills that somebody who wants to transit into a product marketing role should start developing? So, what was it like for you to transition, Irina, and how that journey shaped up?
So I think again, I don't think I can make a list of the top 5 skills, because the product marketing work is very, very holistic. So I think product marketing is a skill in itself, and in this respect, you can search online. There's the Product Marketing Alliance. They have really, really strong product marketing classes and certifications, and you can acquire product marketing as a skill, first and foremost. Then, if you look at the skills in every role, you need a mix of hard skills and soft skills. On the hard skills, I'd say, okay, you need product marketing skills. You need data skills. If you don't understand the data, you can't be a product marketer, because as a product marketer, you're always looking at the data. And then there's a wider range of soft skills that you need, depending on the level of the role, depending on the product that you're working on. It's very important to have, on the hard skills side, again, it's very important to have copywriting skills, because you're going to write a lot, and if you don't have copywriting skills, you can't be a strong product marketer. Then you need to be creative, but yet again, it's about learning and doing, and it's not a list like, okay, these are the skills, check, 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 now I can be a product marketer, because it doesn't actually work like this.
So true. And I think that everything that you mentioned, plus, looking a little bit into human psychology and the things that don't change about human behavior, is also extremely helpful, because it helps you understand and, tap into those behaviors that don't actually change. It helps you understand people's triggers, and it actually applies throughout everything that you do, including your development as a professional, your interactions with other people on your team, and whatever projects that you want to tackle. So looking at a combination, I think that it's basically becoming a T-shaped specialist, which means to be able to have quite the range across several fields, several disciplines, and then focusing in depth on a specific niche that you've chosen for yourself, which is product marketing. And to me, that is a wonderful, fascinating role. And I think that there are not enough product marketers in the world. And I'm glad to see this new generation building up and doing lots of great stuff.
So, what is the most effective marketing strategy you have ever applied? The most effective for what? So I think that again, there's no such thing. Like I did a lot of things in my career. I worked on a million of campaigns on different acquisition channels. All of them have been effective to what extent, but it depends on what your KPI. So in order to measure the effectiveness of your marketing strategy, first and foremost, you need to know what your objective, where do you want to go, and then measure the impact depending on where you actually wanted to get. I know it's cliche, but if you don't know where you want to go, every road is going to get you there. As for marketing strategies, how I'm shaping them in order to make sure that they're effective. So when you're working with an early stage or a high growth company, things are changing super quickly. So you can't just go like in an established company and create a marketing strategy and a marketing plan for the entire year ahead, because you don't actually have visibility into the entire year, and things can change dramatically from one quarter to the other. However, I don't go in the other direction either with, okay, I'm just going to experiment, see what it works I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week, because I don't think that's a good approach either. So I always plan for 3 months ahead. And in order for a marketing strategy to be effective, I start from the data. So I look at the funnel in order to understand what's the funnel health, and then through the marketing tactics tactics campaigns that I put into those strategy, I address the particular challenges that I have and the frictions within the funnel, in order to make sure that I solve these and I get closer to hitting the KPIs that we have as a company. And I can't pick my favorite. I think that to some extent, all the marketing campaigns that I've run, all the strategies that I've built have been effective.
Yeah, that's something that that I empathize with a lot. I think that there are so many different things that go into a marketing strategy, but sometimes we tend to think of it and in conventional terms, just like Irina said, we tend to think that it's a kind of, not set and forget, but like build it and then, execute in the long term. While, the current business environment is so different, especially for a startup. So just to, if you're looking at, let's say, an early stage startup at the beginning of your story and what you're trying to build, I think that it is incredibly important to be very invested in your customers' well-being and in understanding them. I know that I've mentioned this a couple of times by now, but the most effective marketing strategies will be those that match your customers' needs and context the most. And you won't be able to understand that if you don't spend enough time talking to our customers, getting to know them, and getting to know them beyond what they tell you. Look at their behaviors, look at what they do. And if you don't have a ton of data to draw insights from, just start with qualitative data. Look at these conversations, read their reviews for other products, watch them use your product or your competitor's product, and learn from that. There are many ways that you can capture this qualitative data and then use those insights, and slowly as you build and as you grow, or hopefully not slowly, you'll be able to have data sets to drive your decisions. Staying flexible, and having, let's say, some anchors that you can rely on, that you can build on, that guide your decisions, are incredibly important. And those milestones are your objectives. You'll be able to make a decision quicker if you know what you're going after, if this fits that path or not. And making decisions fast in a startup is incredibly important. I found that sometimes conversations tend to extend on certain topics. Metrics is one of them. Choosing a payment provider can be another. There are so many, let's say, strategic parts of the business that sometimes get stuck because the decision making process takes too long. So whenever you find yourself, in a rut and at that point, just give yourself an out and just execute on what seems to be the best decision at that moment, because you'll never be able to make a best decision with all of the information. Just do your best at that possible moment, and every improvement will build up in time and have a compound effect. So we have one more question. How can content marketing support product marketing in tech companies? Well, isn't that nice? I love this question because it ties in our work at the same time. So, Irina, do you want to lead up on this so I can,
Uh,
you know?
so no, no, no. I think this is your area, so it's best if you go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, perfect. So, when you're talking about product marketing, product marketing led growth, you're going to want to build a content strategy in a way that's a bit different from what people understand about content marketing. So, when most people think about content marketing, they think about, hey, we're going to start with a blog. But when you're product focused, so when you're doing product led growth, you want to do it the other way around. So, first of all, you need to make sure that you cover your basis in terms of explaining what the product does, who it does a good job for, and how. Bring social proof that the third party validation that actually, comes to support and to validate that you're doing a good job, just like you're promising that you will for your potential customers. So that means having a good website. Not, you're not probably not going to be able to make it great from the beginning, but just have a good website that explains things clearly, and that really talks about what a product does, and try to be honest and candid about it, because otherwise it might work against you. Then you're going to want to build use cases and to explain how your product works for specific verticals and for specific industries. You're going to want to, explain where your product fits in your customer's workflow or their dynamic or their life in general, and how it helps them grow. You can use here the jobs to be done framework, which will help you understand how your product or your service makes your customers' lives better in the long term, and how it contributes to their development in the long run. So when you think about content marketing for a product-led growth strategy, think the other way around. Start with your website, work that content in a way that you can repurpose it for social media, in a way that you can build blog articles that talk about your product, but not in a commercial way, but in a way that serves your customers' needs. And make sure that everything that you build ties into the product one way or another. And that's going to take a little bit of research, obviously, a little bit of understanding your customers and what they need. But try to avoid, leading with thought leadership. Try to avoid leading with, things that are very high level that talk about the market in general. And try to focus specifically on the product itself. Try to, talk about all its features, its benefits, use cases, and all of the details behind that. And then lead up to that thought leadership as your authority in the industry grows, because that is a super important element, but it comes a bit later for you. So instead of trying to build your presence on social media, start with your website, and then, use social media as a distribution platform. I hope I managed to capture a bit of what you want to achieve.
So I don't think there's anything else I can add up here. So I think content marketing is super important. It should be part of the go-to market strategies, and hence it's part of product marketing.
So before we wrap up, I think that just, try to feed your brain with good stuff. Try to, find the books, the conversations, the, whatever creative, sources of inspiration you have to feed your mindset, and to truly build, let's say, a multidisciplinary approach to how you do things. I think that this has turned incredibly valuable for me throughout the years. And also, very important, eat your own dog food, use your own product, pay attention to how you behave in relation with other products as a customer to other companies. being able to reflect on your own behavior will make it easier for you to do the same for others. So I hope that helps.
So as a final thought, when it comes to product marketing, to everything related to the startup world, just learn, learn, learn. Never stop learning, never stop connecting. Be present. Read everything that's happening. Things are changing super fast. And try to make sure that you're always up to date with what's happening, that you're consistently learning and becoming a better product marketer with every single day, with every single book, with every single article you read, and with everything single product that you're working on.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been great doing
Thank
this,
you.
Irina. Always a pleasure.
Same here. Bye.
Bye.